Let's get one thing straight. Your brain was not evolved to manage a diversified portfolio or a self-custodied Bitcoin vault. It was evolved to survive in an environment of extreme scarcity. In that environment, value was something you consumed immediately. Meat, honey, or salt. When you found a resource, your brain flooded you with dopamine, the neurotransmitter of more. Dopamine is not the chemical of satisfaction. It is the chemical of anticipation and pursuit. It drives you to get the thing, but the moment you have it, the dopamine drops, leaving you in a reward deficit. In 2026, the soft man is a victim of this primitive wiring. When he closes a successful deal or sees his assets pump 50%, he experiences a massive dopamine spike. But because he doesn't understand his own neural ledger, he misinterprets this spike as a command to consume. This is the profit to trash pipeline. The soft man makes $50,000 in a gray zone play and immediately feels the biological pressure to spend it. He buys a $10,000 watch, a first-class ticket he doesn't need, or a high-end gadget that will be obsolete in 6 months. Why? Because his primitive brain thinks the numbers on the screen are a temporary windfall that might vanish. It wants to lock in the reward by turning the digital digits into a physical status signal. He is trading sovereign power for social validation. He thinks he's celebrating his win, but he is actually liquidating his future to satisfy a 50,000-year-old survival instinct. He is a dopamine serf, spending his capital to fix a chemical crash that he doesn't even know is happening. The architect realizes that financial dopamine is a double-edged blade. The same drive that makes you aggressive enough to seek profit is the same drive that makes you stupid enough to waste it. In 2026, the consumer grid is precision engineered to catch your profit spikes. Every algorithm on your phone knows exactly when you've had a financial win based on your search history and spending patterns. They hit you with targeted temptations at the exact moment your dopamine baseline is crashing. They want to ensure that the real money never stays in your hands long enough to become weaponized equity. If they can keep you in a cycle of earn and spend, you're nothing more than a high-velocity currency pass-through. You are a pipe that the money flows through, but you never get to keep the pressure. Furthermore, we must address the status anxiety of the new money. In 2026, the white market is collapsing and the soft men are terrified of losing their place in the hierarchy. When they make a profit, they use it to buy their way back into the tribe. They buy the luxury brands that signify I am still successful, failing to realize that the elite, the true architects, have already moved into invisible wealth. The real money is hidden in gray jurisdictions, in hard assets, and in micro-monopolies. It doesn't scream for attention. The soft man is screaming for attention because his biology is insecure. He is using his profit as a pheromone, trying to attract a status that he hasn't actually earned through sovereignty. He is spending his armor to buy jewelry. The architect practices neurochemical defense. He understands that the most dangerous time for his capital is the 48 hours after a major win. This is the post-profit danger zone. During this time, his executive function is compromised by the dopamine hangover. He implements a mandatory cooling-off protocol. He does not move money, he does not browse luxury retail, and he does not reward himself with liabilities. He understands that the greatest reward for a successful trade is the freedom to make the next one. He keeps the dopamine pressure inside the system, using the win to fuel the next hunt rather than venting it into the consumer sinkhole. He realizes that real satisfaction comes from the expansion of his perimeter, not the inflation of his lifestyle. The soft man is a dopamine addict who uses the market to get his fix. The architect is a dopamine engineer who uses his biology to build an empire. The year 2026 is a great siphoning. The system is designed to bleed the new money dry through impulsive consumption and status traps. If you want to keep your profit, you have to kill the consumer inside your own skull. You have to stop viewing money as permission to spend and start viewing it as fuel for sovereignty. Part 1 is the brutal diagnosis. You are leaking capital because you are a slave to your own reward circuit. If you don't plug the leak, the lords of the grid will always own you, no matter how much you earn. Let's dismantle the illusion of success in the 2026 economy. The soft man views his profit as a ticket to the club. When he hits a six-figure win in the gray zone or scales his micro-monopoly, his first instinct is to signal. He wants the world to know he has arrived. He buys the high-end German sedan, the hype beast wardrobe, and the $50,000 Swiss watch. He thinks he is showing strength, but the architect looks at him and sees a loud target. In the hyper-transparent, AI-monitored world of 2026, signaling is a form of self-sabotage. You are literally paying a premium to tell the taxman, the kidnapper, and the social justice algorithm exactly where to find you. You are using your capital to buy a beacon of vulnerability. The elite, the true architects of the global order, understand a concept the soft man can't grasp: invisible wealth. In 2026, real power doesn't wear a logo. Real power is the gray man. The gray man is the individual who controls millions in self-custodied assets, owns 3 jurisdictional ghost entities, and has a private security protocol, but drives a 5-year-old Toyota and wears a $20 plain black t-shirt. He has decoupled his internal value from external validation. He doesn't need the waiter to know he's rich. He needs his exit strategy to be fully funded. The soft man is rich in things, but poor in power. The architect is invisible in things, but sovereign in power. You must understand the status tax of 2026. When you buy a luxury item, you aren't just paying the retail price. You are paying the opportunity cost of sovereignty. Every $10,000 you spend on a flex is $10,000 that isn't earning yield in a DeFi dark pool, isn't buying productive land, and isn't being converted into hard assets. But it goes deeper. Status symbols attract parasitic attention. They bring people into your life who want to harvest your energy. They attract gold diggers, faux friends, and compliance officers. The soft man surrounds himself with people who love his watch, while the architect surrounds himself with people who value his judgment. By buying into the status trap, you are voluntarily entering a social prison where you have to keep earning just to maintain the facade. You have become a slave to your own brand. Furthermore, we must address the weaponization of luxury by the state. In 2026, your spending profile is a primary data point for your social credit and tax risk score. The state uses AI to monitor luxury car registrations, high-end real estate transactions, and even social media flexing to identify candidates for wealth audits. When you post that picture of your new toy, you're filing a self-incriminating report to the authorities. You are saying, "Look at all this surplus capital I have that isn't being taxed or confiscated yet." The soft man thinks he's winning the social game, but he's actually losing the survival game. The architect knows that in 2026, the ultimate luxury is privacy. Being able to move through the world without a digital or physical footprint is a level of wealth that 1,000 Lamborghinis can't buy. The status trap is also a psychological anchor. When you buy the big house and the fast car, you increase your fixed costs. You raise your survival threshold. Suddenly, you can't take the gray zone risks you used to take because you have a $15,000 a month image maintenance bill to pay. You have traded your agility for appearance. You are now locked in to the very system you were trying to escape. The architect practices lifestyle lag. Even when his net worth grows by 10 times, he keeps his expenses at the same baseline for years. He uses the surplus to build an unshakable fortress of equity. He waits until his passive yield can buy the luxury 10 times over before he even considers it. He wants the asset to buy the toy, while the soft man uses his blood equity to buy the toy. The 2026 gray man strategy is built on asymmetric signaling. You signal competence and resourcefulness to your peers in the sovereign community, but you signal averageness to the general public. You use encrypted channels to discuss multi-million-dollar deals, but you use a public persona that is unremarkable and boring. This is strategic obscurity. It allows you to operate in the gray zones without attracting the gaze of the eye of Sauron. The soft man is a moth flying toward the light. The architect is the spider operating in the shadows. One is beautiful and doomed. The other is invisible and thriving. The status trap is a filter for new money. The system wants to ensure that people who stumble upon wealth immediately give it back through high-margin consumption and status taxes. It's a way of keeping the hierarchy stable. If the peasants stay in the earn and spend loop, they can never accumulate enough concentrated capital to challenge the lords. The architect refuses to participate in this wealth recycling program. He keeps his capital, he keeps his head down, and he builds his sovereign domain. He knows that in the end, the man with the most toys loses to the man with the most options. Part 2 is the line in the sand. Stop buying proof of wealth and start acquiring proof of power. If you can't walk into a room of successful people and feel comfortable being the least flashy person there, you aren't sovereign yet. You are still a slave to their opinions. The real money is quiet. The real money is hidden. The real money is the gray man who owns the building, while the soft man is paying for the VIP table inside it. It's time to kill the influencer inside you and birth the operator. We have one part left: the sovereign reserve and the neuroeconomic rewire. The soft man is a victim of consumption-driven dopamine. For him, the high comes at the moment of the transaction. The swipe of the card, the unboxing of the gadget, the smell of the new car. These are his hits. But as we've discussed, this dopamine spike is followed by a crash, leading to a reward deficit, forcing forces him to spend again. The architect performs a neural flip. He trains his brain to release dopamine not when money leaves his account, but when it enters his sovereign reserve. He learns to find visceral pleasure in the growth of his unshakable assets. When his Bitcoin stash increases, when his land title is secured, or when his DeFi yield is harvested, he feels the same rush the soft man feels when buying a Gucci bag. He has successfully monetized his own ambition. Image: a brain diagram showing two pathways. Path A, profit to spending to dopamine crash, the slave. Path B, profit to asset accumulation to dopamine spike, the architect. To achieve this, you must implement the visual ledger protocol. Your brain struggles to value digital digits because they are abstract. This is why it's so easy to spend them. The architect makes his wealth visually real. He uses dashboards, physical charts, or even hard tokens like physical gold coins to represent his progress. Every time you move capital into your fortress, you must celebrate that move with the same intensity the system wants you to use for consumption. You are gamifying your sovereignty. You are turning the wealth war into a high-stakes simulation where the points are your days of freedom. In 2026, the man who finds the growth of the ledger more exciting than the luxury of the lounge is mathematically destined to own the future. Furthermore, we must address neuro-association with power. The soft man associates wealth with comfort. He wants to be rich so he can be lazy. This is a low-T objective that leads to stagnation. The architect associates wealth with capability and defense. He doesn't look at a $100,000 reserve and think, I could buy a Porsche. He thinks, I've just bought myself 2 years of total immunity from the state's labor grid. He thinks, I've just funded a private security detail for my family. He thinks, I've just acquired the leverage to tell a corrupt partner to go to hell. He treats his capital as weaponized optionality. When you stop viewing money as a shopping list and start viewing it as a war chest, your biological urge to blow it on nonsense evaporates. You don't spend your shield to buy candy. The second stage of the rewire is dopamine fasting and sensory recalibration. In 2026, the world is too loud. High fructose corn syrup, infinite scrolling, and high stimulus entertainment have blown out your reward threshold. If you are constantly overstimulated, the slow growth of an asset feels boring. The architect practices strategic boredom. He intentionally lowers his baseline of stimulation. He meditates, he trains in silence, and he spends time in nature. By lowering the noise, the signal of wealth accumulation becomes loud again. He recalibrates his brain so that a 2% monthly growth in his portfolio feels like a symphony. He becomes a microsensitivity specialist. While the soft men need a $10,000 night out to feel alive, the architect feels alive, watching his sovereign systems operate with 99.9% uptime. He has cheated the system by needing less to feel more. This leads to the concept of the sovereign feedback loop. Once you have a taste of true temporal freedom, the ability to own your entire Tuesday without asking for permission, the cheap dopamine of a luxury car feels like garbage. You realize that the car is actually a dopamine anchor that ties you back to the job you hate. The architect develops a consumption allergy. He starts to view stuff as clutter for his soul. He realizes that every physical object he owns is a piece of mental RAM, being consumed by maintenance, security, and storage. He moves toward digital-heavy, physical light wealth. He owns the keys to the world, but he travels with a single backpack. He has achieved maximum leverage with minimum drag. In 2026, the financial dopamine of the masses is being harvested to fund the infrastructure of the elite. Every time you buy a trend, you're helping the lords build their next AI server farm. But when you rewire your brain, you become an asset magnet. Capital starts to flow toward you because you are one of the few individuals who won't vomit it out back into the consumer market. You become a sink for value. The system fears the man who cannot be bribed by comfort. They can't control you through interest rates if you don't want their loans. They can't control you through social credit if you don't want their status. You have become biologically ungovernable. Part 3 is the final hard fork of the series. Stop being a consumer of the world and start being the owner of it. Your brain is either your greatest liability or your most powerful asset. The soft men will continue to spend their way to happiness and find only burnout and debt. But the architect has found the secret frequency. He has aligned his survival instincts with his capital accumulation. He is no longer fighting himself. He is a unified machine moving toward total sovereignty. The reward isn't the stuff. The reward is the power to exist on your own terms. The year 2026 is the year of the neuro-economic great divide. There will be those who are programmed by the algorithm and those who program their own biology. The soft men will stay in the dopamine trap until their dying day. But the architect has used the financial dopamine to build an unshakable fortress. He is the gray man. He is the ghost. He is the sovereign. The lights are green. The reserve is open. It's time to stop spending and start becoming. End of protocol.